Thank you, Anna. Hi, everyone. So today we will talk about how to get your science out of the ivory tower onto platforms like Instagram and LinkedIn. So first, I would just briefly discuss why researchers should be on social media platforms in the first place, how you can use it, and what communicator roles you can adapt as a researcher, because there's really specific ones. Then I would also talk about personal branding. This is important. Some of you might wonder, but I will tell you why. Then I give a short look into what the pitfalls of social media can be, how a concept looks like on social media when you produce a channel or content, and how storytelling on social media works, because it's a bit differently from other platforms. I will also talk about the times when to post something, and I will also talk about Instagram and LinkedIn as platforms, special platforms for social media. And yeah, then I hope your science gets out of the ivory tower. For each chapter, I will have short quotes to introduce or to illustrate what I'm going to talk about. So we start. Oh, this didn't work here. Okay. So you cannot see the quotes now. Obviously, there is a problem. So anyway, so I will tell you anything what should be written there. So someone said, not every science communication strategy requires social media. The second is that scientists shouldn't have to worry about their communication target groups. And the third quote is that especially from a societal perspective, it is not desirable for all researchers to put out their facts on social media platforms without gatekeepers like good science journalists really taking care of it and in translating it. So when I read those comments under my LinkedIn post I did in April this year, I felt like the year 2010 was knocking at my door and wanted to say, hey, these are my opinions, because I think these are not valid anymore. Why is that the case? So there are less and less journalists. I have been working as a journalist for quite a bit, and there are less and less resources, especially in science journalism. So it's really the argument that the work of communicating science should be done by science journalists is a bit shaky. Other point, most gatekeepers had been eliminated anyways by the internet and social media. And I would argue that researchers do think about their target groups, but mostly about their peers. So, and I think it's also from a societal perspective really, really crucial to bring facts into discourse, objectivity and scientific thinking. It's not good to leave the platforms to the trolls. And the last point is, well, the platforms, that's just where the social media platforms, that's just where the people are, right? So you see Facebook is still the biggest platform with 3 billion monthly active users. LinkedIn has 900 million registered members. Instagram is quite big, but you see also regionally specific platforms like Douyin or WeChat, quite big. So how can researchers use social media? So this quote is really cool. I saved it in a folder which is called Impact on our team, so we can see what we are doing. So there was a researcher from ETH Zurich, that had written us that they had been in contact with leading Swiss and European Union institutions that had found out about their studies. And when they asked them where they got to know about these studies, they said, well, it was LinkedIn. So you can really see, you can adapt the social media to the research cycle. So you can pull in, that means you can screen for relevant literature, for new research, potential collaboration partners, or even study participants. We see a lot of researchers writing on social media that they search for participants of a study. You can exchange, of course, with people. You can mirror your findings or your drafts, even get feedback, draw in expertise to help with your research. And then again, you can push out your content. You can push it out to multiplicators like journalists, platforms, or even scientific magazines, or you can push it out yourself. So what is then the outcome of this? The outcome means your research can potentially get more impact because it's seen, right? It's for no use when you communicate in a vacuum when no one hears about your research and what you're doing. It also gives more visibility to you as a person. You may get more connections for prospective collaborations, and you could, as I said, find also maybe participants to join a study, or even employees, right? So I talked to a researcher at ETH Zurich who applied to a lab, and she got the job there only because what they did on Twitter, right? So she was really checking what those different labs were doing on social media, and she decided for this one lab because of their Twitter account some years ago. And of course, you can improve your work through more feedback. So what are the roles you can take on as a scientist, as a researcher, communicating what you're doing on social media? So this quote is by Reto Knutti. He is probably the most important climate scientist in Switzerland, or one of the three maybe most important ones. And he said that he realized that politics, society are often not really able to read data, to really classify it, unless they have someone who tells them how to, tells them the story. So, and what are the storyteller roles looking like? So there's the pure expert on one side, right? So you really use nuanced words. It's low risk of being misunderstood or even attacked in a shitstorm, instrumentalized. You really stick to your science and also to the specific jargon of your field, which also means that not everyone understands you, right? On the other side of the continuum, you have the activist, rather aggressive communication style, way less nuanced. The activist tries to drive change in society, in policy. There's a high risk, of course, to be misunderstood and to be instrumentalized or even attacked. And there in the middle, we say it's the popularizer, right? So this is a person who really tries to make science research more accessible, using a language that is easier understandable. This person doesn't have an agenda like the activist has, but is less nuanced like the pure expert. So, and this is a continuum, right? You can see this black thing going to the right, bigger and bigger. So this is basically like leaning out of the window more and more and more. So you really have to choose where you want to be. And of course, some people would argue there are many more roles, but that's like the three big ones we see in science communication. And those roles are shaped by your personality. So not everyone can or wants to be an activist. Like there are more people that are more introvert, that really want to stick to their science. It's also about what they want to achieve, what target groups they want to address with their content, and also the tonality and the storytelling techniques you use. So here, just an example of Johannes Bohacek. He is a researcher at ETH Zurich. And here is a neuroscientist, especially doing research on stress in mice. This is important because roles can differ. Roles can differ from platform to platform. They can differ also from topic to topic. So here you see an Instagram post on the upper right and two X/Twitter posts. So on Instagram, Mr. Bohacek talks more directly in sort of a popularizing style to students how to manage their scientific career, what the path they should follow. Maybe one post was about, do my marks matter, or is my doctoral thesis really like, do I have to stick to this to my whole career, etc. And on Twitter now you can see there are two different posts. So in the one in the corner, in the right corner down there, he's really saying or addressing his bubble. He calls it neurobubble, and he draws in some expertise. So you can see really this pull-in mechanism social media can have in research. And on the left hand, he is more an activist because he is really pro animal experiments. So you can see also the language really differs. He says animal rights activists have damaged science. So this is really stark statement, really activist, but that's what he chose for this topic. And it's consciously what he's choosing to communicate and how. So, and with these roles, there comes also the question of personal branding. So I have now a longer quote. I don't know if you know this guy, Adam Grant, professor of psychology, TED talker. And I heard him saying in a podcast what I found really a cool distinction between bragging, basically, right? So self-promoting, hey, look at me, how cool I am. I want to show off my trophies. And what he is calling idea promotion. He says idea promotion means I have something worth sharing. It's seen as generosity. So I'm taking my knowledge and my skills and trying to create a gift for people. And why do I talk about personal branding in the first place? Is this really important to researchers? Yes, it is. Why? It's because you already are a brand, right? You write papers, you write posters for conferences with your name. Your name is already a brand. You can't do anything about it. So it's being also created in the way you communicate, for example, as an activist or as a popularizer, by the topics you choose to talk about. It's also created this image of you on social media with the photos and videos, how you look there, how you interact or act. And it's being created also by the visuals you choose. So this persona, this brand is developing anyway. You can't do anything about it. The only thing you can do is really consciously try to shape and develop it. Really be conscious about which direction you want to take. And now I have an example of a researcher who I think does it really well. It's Johanna Gollhofer, marketing professor at the University of St. Gallen. Here is her Instagram account. So maybe something, when you have a look at it, pops into your eye, which is green. Right, so Johanna Gollhofer is wearing a lot of green when she's in television, for example, and she's being interviewed by the Swiss Broadcasting Television SRF. She uses it also for her visuals, and this comes in handy because she's an expert in green marketing on one hand, and her university HSG, its colors is dark green. So this color really has a function. So she's being recognized, and it's also connected to the topic and her university. And she's really designing her posts well. And this tool she's using, I can see this template basically is Canva, is the name of the tool. Some people of you might know it, but she really puts effort into it. And then about the language she's using, so maybe not everyone here understands German, but she's still trying, I think, to figure out which register of language she should choose, right? So the p-value on the right is really scientific, and Dreist ist die Umweltlüge, that's really popularizing. So she's, I think, in ways of language, she's still finding her way, but she's definitely consciously developing a brand. Well, no wonder why she's a marketing professor, that she's doing it well, but just to give you a glimpse how that can look. So what are the pitfalls of social media? I found this quote really helpful of a professor of our neighbor university in Zurich, Diana Pomeranz. She said, it's important to be aware that Twitter, in this case, is voluntary. So even during vigorous debates, when conversations become complex or emotional, in brackets, they often do so, I often find it helpful to switch to direct messages or the phone to establish a common ground. So she's talking a bit into the direction of shitstorms, and I will come back to this in a second. So are shitstorms likely? For some, it is, when you're an activist. Because, as I said, you're leaning out of the window, you're trying to be less nuanced, you try to be edgy, you want to drive change in policy and society. So when you want to drive change, you push the boundaries, and that might be against the opinion of some people. For some topics, it's more likely. So we see the danger, especially like in climate sciences at ETH Zurich, but not so much for quantum physics, of course. They are difficult to win, I have to say, shitstorms. And I think there's some steps you can take when you see that a shitstorm is really brewing. First, take a deep breath. Don't try to act in a fight or flight mode reaction. Maybe shut off the computer or switch off the phone for some minutes. Go back and then check if the attack is valid. And if so, hey, why not apologizing? Try to direct this to contact this person directly with a direct message or phone or mail if you have. And then the next step would be, if you can't control what's brewing up, maybe you ask your university's communications team for help. There are experts at every university that should somehow know how to deal with this. And the last step, I'd say, is to really restrict or block people. I say it's the last step because many would then just take a photo, a screenshot, and share it on social media like a trophy. Oh, I've been blocked. This person is not really interested in this course. So just the last step. So what are other potential dangers? Of course, there is the danger to damage your reputation. Because when you do big mistakes in an important graphic that should illustrate your research, or writing texts that are really wrong orthographically, it can, of course, damage your reputation. But that's not restricted to social media, right? If you use visuals or text somewhere else, it's also damaging your reputation. And when you utter your opinions about other topics outside of your field of expertise, this can also backfire at you. You can end up in social media just doing it for the algorithm. And I have to say, that's why I have this sort of devilish emoticon there down there. It's a dance with the devil because, of course, these platforms profit from rich content and they always change their algorithm. I think on Facebook, it's like 4 times a year. So if you want to be like ahead and always have the biggest reach, you really have to professionally work on this, and you can end up spending a lot of time, and you just constantly adjust, and you recognize, oh, I just did it for social, not for my research anymore. So it can, and this is the next one, it can really eat up your time. So you really have to think about the expense return ratio here, and not to end up in a rabbit hole. So, but we decided here, I mean, you were interested in social media, right? So you're interested a bit in the rabbit hole. So let's discuss how a concept should look like, because I think you can, of course, do content on social media without having a concept. It just doesn't make too much sense. So I have a quote from Gary Vee. He's probably one of the 10 social media marketeers in the world. And he says, mastering content strategy, creation, and distribution is a difficult and long process. Why do I share this quote? Because sometimes when people start, I don't know, creating an Instagram profile for their lab, LinkedIn account for their center they're working at, and they make their first post and they, I don't know, they don't get any like or share or nothing. They're getting frustrated. I'm like, yeah, you have to try, fail, try again, fail, fail forward. So you have to put a lot of thoughts into your concept. At first, you have to really think of and about your goal. What is your goal really? For example, you have a scientific conference. You want, of course, people to attend it. But is it really is it in line with your needs to attract 200 people? Or is it maybe in line with your needs to attract 50 people from a very specific region or with a very specific background? And is the goal you have, is it smart? So is it really specific? Is it can you measure it? Can I achieve it? It doesn't make sense to have the goal. I want to be the biggest research, science communication, health channel on Instagram in Switzerland in 1 year. So it's not achievable, right? And is it really relevant to your research? And how can you measure the success? For example, you say, okay, I set up this LinkedIn campaign for my conference, and I want through this campaign to get 20% more traffic on my landing page than the years before. So this is a really specific KPI. So audience, who is your audience? And I say again, I have to tell this all over again, everyone is not an audience. You really have to be specific. Whom do you want to address and why? And what are their needs? Why should they really consume your content? Try to look through their eyes. Researchers often tend to be focused on as the addresser, but you really have to think about the people that are addressed. What do they really want to hear? How do they want to consume your content? What language do they want to consume the content in? So, for example, in Switzerland, it makes more sense in health policy sometimes to communicate not in English, but more in French and German, right? The main two languages in Switzerland, because you address the deciders in Bern. And of course, to tell, we will come back to this in the storytelling chapter, what is the value the users get from you? And the inspiration, what is the competition doing? What do other researchers do? And what can I do really well? For example, my strength is text. My weakness is visuals. So I'm more focusing on text. And for visuals, I draw in expertise from colleagues of mine. And with the competition, try to do benchmarking. That's what we did with ETH Zurich. We looked at, I don't know, 20 different universities in the world. Not only universities, but also for Instagram, we looked at successful Instagram accounts that are not in the science field, because or scientainment field, because we wanted to see what is a good Instagram channel and how can we sort of approach the way they do it. I said it before about the resources, it can be a pain. You really have to think about, I mean, you can have the greatest concept with cool, I don't know, templates for LinkedIn and Instagram, but when you end up just having 1 hour per week, it doesn't make sense, right? So you really have to see and calculate how much time you want to invest and you are able to invest in. And as I said, what skills do you need? Maybe you need to draw in some expertise from other colleagues. And how often can you create and post content? Do you say, okay, for me, it's just Monday morning, maybe because I don't have a lecture to hold or whatever. And then you think about the platform. So what is the platform? Maybe, for example, when I talk to our Department of Architecture, maybe for researchers from this department, Pinterest could be interesting because it's really visual. But maybe from another department, it looks completely different. So you have to really think about the platforms where your needs and the user's needs meet, right? Always think of the user's needs. Always try to emphasize, put yourself into the shoes of the people that try or would use your content, consume your content. And that is also important for storytelling. So I took this quote. It's a cool article. You can Google it. Done by the European Research Executive Agency from last year's. And they interviewed people that had got European Union financing for their research project. And one person said there, so 3 things they learned would be that they needed to inform or excite or move a person to a specific action on social media. That's what you try to do. So I have to break it to you, but you're competing with cat videos on social media. It's an attention economy. And so it's no use to say you're on Instagram, but you don't post visually attractive content. You need to compete or to be able to compete there with others. Try to address people directly with a call to action. Make their thumbs stop, as they say in the social media field, with using the features the platforms offer. So, for example, you can gamify your content on Instagram. I will talk about this later. you really have to know, okay, for example, LinkedIn has a live audio option. If you don't use it, you have to know why you're not using it, right? So use the features the platforms have. About text, be as brief as possible. The attention span is really low on social media. The first sentence is the most important one you have. You really have to make people stop scrolling. Tailor your language to your audience again, and use try to optimize your text also for search. What could a person search for? Also by hashtags. On certain platforms, they're more relevant than on others. On Instagram, it's not so relevant, as the CEO just said last week or this week. But when you use them, try to make them accessible, meaning that they can be read by people with reading or sight disabilities. So each word in a hashtag should start with a capital letter. And use the language, use words that people might search for when they are interested in the topic you're doing your research in. And there is a visuality about even text on social media. Especially LinkedIn, Instagram, people are really structuring the text, and users are getting used to consume text content, which is visually attractive itself. And you also can see here the on the upper right corner, there's this ETH Zurich post with the hook, how we call it. So the first sentence, first two sentences, and then you see ... see more. This is the feature of the platform. So you really have to make people click on the see more to get more reach if you want to have that. So about pictures, really, during your research process, always take photos and videos, because when you end up handing in your paper you had been working on for maybe 1 year, 2 years, and then the communication person in the university asks you, okay, cool. So where do you have any cool pictures that can illustrate it? And you're like, damn, I should have thought about this like 2 years ago. So really keep that in the back of your mind. It's not only for the purpose of social media, but also other communication channels. But for social, what is the hook? What is the value proposition your image gives to others? So for example, in the middle, you see, okay, there's an orca, there's a guy talking about it. So I really, as a user, see directly, okay, that's what I'm gonna see. That's my expectation is quite clear when I get this image. And as my dog likes dogs, humans like to see humans. So try to post content maybe with yourself or a colleague who is really up for getting in front of a camera, because that's what humans do, like watching humans. Tools, Photoshop, Canva. I don't think I have to say too much about this. And there are some short tricks about video producing. So there's this method, it's called Pope in the Pool. This means that actually you have two ways or two dimensions of attracting the attention of the users. So one is the way you speak, or your language, or the content you're producing verbally, and the other is something what's happening around. And it turned out, there was research about it, that videos that have like these two dimensions, they really attract the attention more of the users. So about producing, zooming in, smart cutting and cropping, using B-roll material. So for example, when you're interviewing someone, or you're being interviewed yourself about your research, you say something and then the audio continues, and there's a picture coming in to illustrate what you're talking about. 1 second, sorry. So subtitles, important. You can add these on some platforms automatically. On most platforms, people don't watch videos with audio. On LinkedIn, it's 80% without audio, and Facebook, it's similar. So really, I think about the subtitles. And it's also helpful because sometimes you're using specific words, scientific from your field, that no one understands. So people really also want to see how you're gonna write these things, right? And also try to see there are mega trends. I don't know the last video I saw on social media that didn't have any small part in slow motion. I don't remember this. Also on certain platforms like TikTok, it's really important to loop your videos. So it means it ends, your video ends leading directly to the start of the video. So people basically watch it more than one time. Is there a perfect time to post? You might ask. So that's a caption of a post we did on Twitter. It says, if only this award-winning paper about stable dinner party seating arrangements had been published before Christmas. We got a positive reaction to this post, but it really illustrates a problem. You really have to think on the macro level when to post, because, for example, you do research about malaria. Use the World Malaria Day. I mean, there's an international day for anything in the world, for bees, for, I don't know, water plants, anything. Also on conferences or events, really try to see, is there some event that's taking or using or is built around the research you are doing? Why is this important? Because the attention society and policymakers is really shifting according to certain debates and events, right? It's also, I don't know, if someone does a research about health issues, I don't know, certain pandemics in let's say Poland, and there's some virus in France, and the media is writing about it. Just wait until the attention shifts again back, right? So you really have to see your window of opportunity to post. You can really also use certain events, discussions, discourses for posting your content before to shape the agenda maybe, or after to shape the interpretation of the results. Do please make a content plan. It doesn't have to be elaborate for every day of the year, but so my colleague and I, when we do content planning, we'll always look ahead in our weekly meetings 3 weeks ahead. Is there something popping up, some conference? Is there some international day? Is there could there be a heat wave coming? So we could connect to our researchers doing the research on heat waves. Yeah, and also really what we do each quarter, check the next quarter, the next 3 months, what's happening there. On the micro level, there are also really times when to post and not to post. So the best time to post is when your users are really online. And this differs from platform to platform, country to country, profile to profile. I mean, there are certain cultures. So I don't know, for example, it doesn't make too much sense maybe to post on Instagram in Switzerland at 9 in the morning, because then people will have their snoonie with their colleagues. Or maybe, for example, in Spain, when people are in siesta, maybe it's a better time to post, right? So if you're not online that time, that's no problem. You can schedule the post in the tools you have. You can check the analytics on the platforms to tell you when your users are online. And it really also depends when you want to post, depends on the audience and the goals you have, right? So for example, you want to, let's go back to a scientific conference you're organizing. You want to get participants from a country from a very different time zone there. So maybe you need to schedule a post for 1 o'clock at night in your time zone, right? So really think about this. And it's about the rhythm of the publication. Do it regularly. So LinkedIn says when you post once per week, you will have 4 times more profile views. I think it's again the dance with the devil, because of course LinkedIn wants more content on their platform. But really, the thing is, when users have their feed and you just once per, I don't know, per 2 months post something, then it's just being washed away. So, and also try to post create several posts for an occasion or an event, right? So when you finally publish your paper, maybe to do 2 or 3 different LinkedIn posts about it, because it's going to be flushed away through all the sheer mass of content that's being out there. So 2 specific social media platforms I would talk about a little bit is Instagram and LinkedIn. So I found this quote about Instagram: social media is a powerful tool for science communication. Instagram's image-focused model is no exception. First, so each platform, they all have their own algorithms, and they constantly change and evolve. And they all have their different features and ways of storytelling. They copy each other in some ways, but still they're distinct. Instagram. So Instagram is still picture-driven. We see that the so-called gallery or carousel post, it means like several posts you can swipe through. They have more reach even than Reels still often. And Reels, that's a vertical video format they copied from TikTok. What I really like and what we use a lot at ETH Zurich, or even should use even more, is the dialogue features you have, especially in the stories. So stories are these is this feature or channel within Instagram that shows your content for only 24 hours, and there you can place links. And you can also place their quizzes, for example, which is really cool to drive engagement with your content. So I think it was 2 months ago we posted something about a new research apparatus we had at ETH, and people should guess what it was. Could it absorb CO2, or could it imitate the sun, or could it, I don't know, whatever. So it was cool. No one got the right answer, I think. And so what the interesting thing also is about Instagram is people always talk about Gen Z being on TikTok only. That's wrong. It's wrong. Instagram is still quite used across all age groups now, basically. So it is an interesting platform. It used to be a lot for e-commerce, but it's already peaked. So they had this feature with a tab for e-commerce. This is already gone. They, in their strategy, they focus on other stuff. So LinkedIn, as you probably know, it's a mix between a social media platform and a job searching platform. So it used to be really, really professional, and it's being used as a recruiting tool, but it's becoming more private and political. I saw even people posting about their pregnancy tests and about their burnouts, and yeah. So, but what I think is really cool for LinkedIn, which makes the audience way less nasty than on Twitter and X, is people have to be there with their real names. And for many users now, what I see with our researchers at ETH Zurich, many change towards LinkedIn from X or Twitter. So LinkedIn has special features other platforms don't have, which stems also from this job searching platform DNA. So you can connect people in a chat. I had this experience once, which was really cool. So I posted something about mental health, and a friend of mine connected me to another guy who did basically a similar post in the same day. They said, "Hey, why don't you exchange?" And yeah, we met for a coffee, and we have a great exchange since then. So this is cool to really get your network expanding. LinkedIn Learning is a cool platform. You can only use it with premium. Premium is expensive. In Switzerland, it's 55 francs now per month. But yeah, there are different courses. I don't know how to present leadership. I don't know. You can check it. Gallery posts, as on Instagram, are also quite popular, but it's only in PDF format. Don't try to upload JPEG or PNG files. You can use your CV you're building up there on LinkedIn, you can basically export it as a PDF, which I find cool. And what I like the most, you can record how to pronounce your name in the mobile app, which is really cool because I meet so many people that have no idea how to say their name. And I can just check on LinkedIn where they say it themselves. So yeah, I can avoid some embarrassing moments maybe. And maybe you saw it as well. You can circle sort of, you can get some frames around your profile pictures that say maybe that you're hiring someone or that you're open to work. There's the possibility to create newsletters. And there's really, really great ways to search for people that you could maybe collaborate with in the future. There you have to dive deeper into, but the search options are really, really, really strong. So you can say, for example, I want to, I don't know, I want to search for business developers, maybe because I want to start my own health business developers that follow this specific scientist because I'm in the same research field. And then you get a list maybe of 20 people you can directly contact.